Hi, welcome back to the channel. Over the last 72 hours, the situation in the Middle East has escalated dramatically. We are now into the third consecutive day of strikes on Iran led by the United States and Israel. And the United Kingdom has now become involved after allowing the US to use its bases. And we're already starting to see this spread beyond Iran itself. There are now reports of retaliatory attacks in other countries, including a drone strike on a UK Royal Air Force base in Cyprus. So this is no longer a contained situation. This is rapidly turning into a wider regional conflict. We talked about that in the previous video. There are lots of attacks being reported in lots of Middle East countries, including Dubai, Kuwait, Qatar. There are hundreds of thousands, potentially millions of tourists currently trapped in the region who are petrified. And in today's video, I want to focus in on one key question. Where is Russia? Because Iran is not supposed to be standing alone. So let's start by quickly summarizing where we are right now. We've had 3 days of sustained strikes targeting sites across Iran. These operations are being led by the US and Israel, but they're clearly being supported by Western allies. Now, the UK's position is particularly interesting. Initially, the UK government indicated that it was not directly involved in any offensive action. However, that position has now shifted. The UK has confirmed that it's allowing the United States to use its bases, including those in Cyprus, for what it describes as defensive and support purposes. But as we've already seen, that distinction may not matter because one of those bases, a US RAF installation in Cyprus, has now reportedly been attacked by a drone. So even limited involvement is already drawing the UK into the conflict. And that's how these situations escalate. Now, to understand the bigger picture, we need to look at the alliances involved. On one side, you have what is effectively the Western Bloc. That includes the United States, United Kingdom, France, Germany, and broader NATO alignment. But what's important here is the official stance of each country. The United States is clearly leading the operation alongside Israel. The UK, as we've just discussed, has shifted from a position of non-involvement to indirect support. France has so far taken a more cautious approach, calling for de-escalation and restraint, while also supporting Israel's right to defend itself. Germany has issued similar statements backing Israel politically, but not indicating direct military involvement. So at the moment, what we're looking at is a spectrum. The US and Israel at the centre of the action, the UK providing operational support, and European powers offering political backing but trying to avoid direct escalation. But even that level of alignment is significant. Now let's look at the other side. Iran has been strengthening its relationships with a number of countries over the last few years, but the most important one for this discussion is Russia. Back in January 2024, Russia and Iran signed what was described as a comprehensive strategic cooperation agreement. This included military cooperation, security coordination, intelligence sharing, and economic collaboration, particularly around energy and sanctions. So on paper, this looks like a very close partnership. And that's why many people expected if Iran came under attack, that Russia would get involved. But that hasn't happened. And this is the critical point that often gets overlooked. That agreement between Russia and Iran is not a mutual defense treaty. So unlike NATO, Russia is under no obligation to defend Iran militarily. But that means Russia has a choice. So let's come back to the main question. Where is Russia? Why are they not getting involved? There are really three possible explanations for this. The first is that Russia simply can't get involved. They're still heavily tied up in the war in Ukraine, and that conflict has consumed huge amounts of manpower, depleted their military equipment, and put significant strain on the economy, which we've talked about a lot. We've seen rising budget deficits and pressure on oil revenues, so opening a second major front in the Middle East would be extremely risky for Russia right now. The second possibility is that Russia doesn't want to get involved, and this is where it becomes really interesting from an economic perspective, because instability in the Middle East is pushing up oil prices, and Russia is one of the world's largest oil exporters, so higher oil prices could actually benefit Russia financially. Even though they're having to offer a discount, if prices go up, then Russian oil prices will definitely go up as well. At the same time, a major conflict in the Middle East shifts global attention away from Ukraine. You're probably not seeing many reports on the TV or in the press about Ukraine at the moment because everybody's talking about Iran. And this could ease pressure on Russia in that conflict. So from a strategic point of view, standing back may actually work in Russia's favour. The third possibility is that Russia is deliberately avoiding escalation because if Russia were to step in directly, that would risk a confrontation with the United States and potentially NATO forces. And at that point, you're no longer talking about a regional conflict. You're talking about the risk of a much wider potential world war. So restraint here may not represent weakness. It may be calculation on Russia's part. But whichever explanation you believe, this situation tells us something important. Russia represents itself as a global superpower. That's its position. But in this moment, it is not stepping in to defend a key strategic partner. And that raises serious questions. Now, let's talk about what this means for the global economy, because we're already seeing an impact. Oil prices have surged sharply on the back of this escalation. Prices have moved up into the $70 to $75 range, with spikes even higher during trading. And there is now growing speculation that if this situation continues to escalate, we could see oil move towards $100 per barrel. We're also seeing the impact on the stock markets. There's been increased volatility and notable declines as investors react to the uncertainty. This is classic risk-off behaviour. At the same time, the Middle East is a critical hub for global energy and trade, so any disruption increases shipping costs, insurance premiums, and delays. And finally, there is the risk to inflation globally. If energy prices continue to rise, that feeds directly into the global economy and could create a new wave of inflationary pressure at a time when many economies are only just stabilising. So to summarise, we are now seeing a rapidly escalating situation in the Middle East. The involvement of the US, Israel and Western allies is increasing. The conflict is beginning to spread geographically and now even impacting a US airbase in Cyprus. And despite its close relationship with Iran, Russia, for now, is standing back. And that raises one of the biggest questions in the global geopolitics right now. What does Russia do next? So hopefully you've enjoyed today's video. You found it useful, informative and thought-provoking. If you've liked what I've said, then please give me a thumbs up. Please subscribe to the channel if you haven't done so already. Don't forget, I'm currently running my competition where you can win my property located close to one of the best beaches in the UK or a cash alternative prize. If you'd like to get involved in that, have a look at the QR code on the screen now or click the link in the description below. Thank you so much to everyone that's supported me in other ways. If you've bought me a coffee or sent me YouTube super thanks or signed up as a patron or a member, thank you so much for that support. Really helps to keep me going. And here's something to put a smile on your face.